bit, and we kind of had a little bit more of religious freedom around the house. So she allowed me and my brother to kind of just see what's out there, choose what we wanted for ourselves, kind of thing. And my best friend, he was the son of a pastor, so we kind of connected that way. And I started going to his church. It was like a non-denominational church, and I went there for a couple of years. I was young, so I wasn't really interested in church, and I didn't really get crazy serious about church until I was 18 years old. And I see that's kind of like a trend with some of the people I talk to at the church. Like once they start going to college, or they get older, they start asking questions, and they start like, okay, like if I'm going to be here for the rest of my life, like, I kind of want to understand the faith that I belong to. So that's kind of what got me interested in just learning about apologetics, theology, all that stuff. So I went to the Baptist church next. Thought that was more orthodox. And I was there for a good amount of time. But a good friend of mine, he left for the Greek Orthodox church. And that was kind of the first time I ever heard like Orthodox and Christian kind of be used in the same kind of sentence. So I stayed there for another year, and then I met somebody from East Brunswick, and I just saw how ingrained they were with their faith. I saw how dedicated they were. I saw how committed they were. I saw how serious they were about their faith. I saw how kind they were. Like, y'all know when y'all been around like certain priests or certain bishops, how you can kind of feel almost like the presence of God, just like within that person. That was the person like that I met. So that kind of just piqued my interest. So I just attended a liturgy Friday morning, and that pretty much changed my life. I had never seen anything so beautiful. I just felt like I was in heaven. I didn't want to leave. And I went back to my old church on Sunday, and I just knew, I was like, I gotta seek this out. I don't know what this is. I don't know what I saw. I don't know what's going on. Like, I just want to understand, the history of the liturgy and what I just saw, and especially also hearing that there's like Christians in Egypt. I mean, I was under the impression that most of Egypt was Muslim. So when I hear that there's like Egyptian Christians, I'm like, all right, how's that possible? Like, I want to figure out what that's about. So that's how it was for me.
Hi, how's everyone doing? Good, thank God. My name is Ryan. I attend St. Mina's in Holmdel, not too far from East Brunswick. I actually met him in East Brunswick when I went for the first time, so it's a blessing. And so my name's Ryan, and my upbringing was sort of similar to his in the sense that I was raised Pentecostal. So speak in tongues, fall on the floor, laying on of hands, that sort of thing, a very charismatic church. And my father was a pastor and ordained minister in one of those churches. And so it sort of provided me a basis because his church was very traditional in terms of moral structure, but it was very low church. There was no emphasis on ritual or really church tradition or too much, even though he taught me a little bit about that. And my impression as to the Orthodox Church is that when I was a teenager, about 15, 16, I got very heavily involved in politics. And when I got involved in politics, I became very radical, far right. And but thankfully that gave me a heavy interest in history and philosophy and eventually religion, but I was too stubborn really to admit the religious aspect of it for the longest time. But when I did and I read about the history and everything else, I realized that what I had been taught about the Orthodox and for that matter the Catholic Church as well was wrong. And when I dug deeper into history, I wanted to know what the early church taught because I had, out of that political phase, I became very zealous in my religion, but I wanted to know the whole truth about Christianity. I didn't just want to be a part of a denomination where I believed in 50% or 60% of truth. I wanted the whole thing. And so after a little bit of digging, it boiled down between Roman Catholic and at the time Eastern Orthodox. And the Oriental Orthodox was a later development that I had sort of fallen in love with out of a surprise. But my first impressions after all of that with the Oriental Orthodox Church was actually in the Ethiopian Church. I attended one a few times with a friend who also happened to convert, and he's also in Mississippi. But I attended it, and I was very surprised at the high ritual of it. I had grown a fascination with ancient ritual and things like that by this point. So when I attended the Ethiopian Kadase, the liturgy, I was deeply impressed by one, how long it was, and but also how venerable and ancient it obviously was. And just because it's longer doesn't mean that it has additions to it more so. But with regards to the Coptic Church, I felt that the Oriental Orthodox at the time for me, I had become Catholic because that was all that was in my area at the time. And my first impressions was that the Oriental Orthodox and the Coptic traditions were very alien to me. But the moment that I walked into a Coptic Orthodox church in Memphis, Tennessee, the reception that I had was very, very warm. I felt a warmth much like Justin had talked about, with how warm and welcoming the priests were, and I happened to meet Amba Yusuf that day, and it was a very surprising thing. I didn't attend the whole liturgy, but it was one of those things where I walked into it, and it seemed to me to be sort of the consummation of my upbringing, of my fascinations with the Oriental religions, of the energy that's in the Coptic chant form and the ritual. And it seemed like, and I fell in love with it, very simply put. And I still feel that to this day when I attend liturgy, when I do my chanting, when I interact with Abuna, when I interact with all the Egyptians, wonderful people. Personally, I think. I don't know what you guys think about Egyptians, but I like them. And I think I will leave off there for the time being. I don't want to keep too long, so I'll take it to Shelley.
Hi, thank you for setting this up. I had a situation come up where I'm not really able to move around too much, so thank you. So my name is Shelley. My base church started at St. Nina Homedale also, and moved around a lot for a job in the last couple of years, so just been going to different Coptic churches, and also I go to the Indian Willing Carl Church, which is sister churches with us, one of the Oriental churches. So the other thing in the introduction, I guess they wanted us to talk about is where we came from. I was originally born a Hindu, and if people don't know what that is, it's nothing at all to do with Christ, nothing at all to do with Judaism. It's so different that, like, even before I ever picked up the Bible, I didn't know that, like, Christ was Jewish or what the Bible contained, far from anything besides the holiday of Christmas. So, as you all probably go to school with many Asians, like the biggest population in the world right now is Indians, and they predominantly make up the Hindu population. So that's where I came from.
Thank you for actually answering our first kind of introductory question. Basically trying to highlight our, the upbringing and how did bring you to where you are right now. Actually, I want to harp on one of the points that were just said. I don't want to take much time, but really, the richness of the liturgical richness, it's a really a big gift. I was just listening to a Roman Catholic commentator who was commenting on how after Vatican II, they simplified the liturgy with the expectation that the pews will be filled. What happened actually is quite the opposite. After Vatican II, when the liturgy was kind of watered down to kind of a bare minimum, the pews became emptier, and there was actually, there's this zeal and this yearning to a rich liturgical experience. So I think this was a great point. So for the sake of time, we want to tackle the second question on the list. We have a certain kind of structured part to this panel, then maybe if we have time, we can open up for other questions. The second question, how did you recognize God's calling for you? And, when you throughout the conversion story, how did you find your way to, I mean, you might have answered this partially, but I think the part where I focus, how do you know that this felt right? Felt like you hit the nail on the head, when you made the decision to come to the Coptic Orthodox Church.
Excuse me. So I think for me personally, it started with the church fathers. I started because I didn't know who a church father was. Like a year ago, I had no idea what a church father was. So reading about who they were, and starting with like the apostolic fathers. So Clement of Rome, Irenaeus, Ignatius, Saint Polycarp. These church fathers, these bishops that come right after the apostles. They're very early. So reading their writings and just reading their stories and their letters, that's when I kind of knew that, okay, I'm not in the same church as them. Like, as a Protestant, I don't share the same beliefs that they do in the sense of the real presence in the Eucharist, or their belief on relics, just everything. So even going later to like the later church fathers, and like the big ones for our church, like Saint Athanasius and Saint Cyril, seeing that these men were incredible men of God who helped spearhead councils like Ephesus and Nicaea. I'm just like, okay, like I want to be a part of his church. Like I don't want to be a part of something new that started like 500 years ago. I want to be a part of the church that's ancient, and that traces all the way back to the apostles. So I think was the starting point for me, where I felt like just reading their writings and reading about them, and just trying to understand, okay, where do all of the practices that we do in the church, where do they come from? And I think the church fathers and also their ecumenical councils, that's where I really realized that I'm not in the same church as these men. And I kind of had to reconcile, like, okay, either the church failed and it needs to be reformed, or I need to be a part of the historical church. So that's kind of something that I think everybody who's outside of the church, I think from a Protestant perspective, I think that's what every kind of Protestant kind of has to deal with once they learn the history of the church. It's like, okay, who moved? Did I move, or did the church move away from me? So that's what it was for me.
As I said, when I was a teenager, I got very heavily involved in politics and things that were not of a religious nature. And I was born into the Pentecostal faith. And but I slowly drifted away. I became very lukewarm. But I did have a decent grasp on the biblical literature, and also on things related to the biblical literature from my father, who was very intelligent, and I owe him a lot. So the key things for me, which prompted, sort of got the ball rolling for my conversion, was finding out about the Deuterocanon, or what's called the Apocrypha by Protestants. So these are the Book of Tobit, Book of Judith, Wisdom of Sirach, Wisdom of Solomon, and so on. And these books are not in the Protestant canons because the Protestants follow the canon that the Jews have. They thought, well, since the Jews don't have them, they were never canon. That wasn't true. We know that the rabbinical Judaism had taken the books out in all likelihood around the second century after the Second Temple destruction. And then also me having to discern for myself, I sort of noticed that there was something off and diluted about the Protestant religions, all of them. and I had to debate about my own faith, about Christianity, just overall with heretics. And when I say heretics, I mean I knew some Satanists and neo-pagans and things like that, and Baptists, all sorts of wide range of people. And it was peculiar to me because eventually I began defending doctrines and I began using people that were not my own as a Pentecostal. And when you start defending a religion that is not your own on the basis that it seems to you to be the truth, you should get in line properly. So it was the church fathers, like Justin said, particularly Saint Ignatius of Antioch, Saint Irenaeus of Lyon. Saint Irenaeus of Lyon, one of the greatest church fathers you could ever read for the early church. Saint Justin Martyr, the writings of the Didache, or the teachings of the apostles. All of these things sort of got the ball rolling, and that is the sort of the intellectual foundation. And I realized that during my teenage years, I sort of devolved into a lot of bad habits, and my life had deteriorated because of my lack of religion. And I realized that all the philosophy and all of the things I had wrapped myself in, and all kinds of different interests and things like that, got me nowhere. I wasted my time. And so that was sort of how I had recognized God's calling and how he took a very stubborn person and brought him to repentance, I guess you could say. And with that, I'll give it over to Shelley.
Hi. I guess the one thing interesting hearing from the other two people, and I've heard this from other converts, is that you have to believe something or know something to reject something. So in a sense, I knew my Hinduism. A lot of people just go by culture, which is dangerous, or just abide to a religion based on family. But if you don't understand the premise of it, you can't reject it. So I have grew up reading all the doctrines, and actually when I was 13, I wrote this paper about rejecting this god Ram, and I told my mom to send it to the New York Times, but she didn't. But it just kind of explains that, like, there are certain people that are always looking for the truth. Or I don't know if I was hungry during college, but I always knew God existed, and I was always intrigued by people's religions, and I paid a close eye. All my roommates in college were Muslim girls, and I actually was jealous of how strict their religion is, in the sense of, like, that strictness gives comfort because it gives a understanding of, like, a pattern, and it gives community, and it makes you, there's certain aspects that, like, make you feel like you're comforted in that fact. And I like that, but when I started looking more into the Quran, I couldn't agree with a lot of things, especially being female. So yeah, so initially I would say that most converts have a desire to know the truth or a hunger. Unlike the other two, I'm not much of a researcher or sitting there reading up on things. So my calling to God came first from, I was in a master's program, and the best thing that someone could do is invite me into the Coptic group, because I got to see how it's not just one individual, but it's many individuals that are a little different. It's not like we weren't going to a party, but it was like a very clear difference of what you do at the party. That distinction and that way of having security, like, I loved playing basketball and hanging out with, we all loved, like, studying late at night and at people's houses, and I never felt that kind of comfort before with anybody else, where you can just go to somebody's house and not feel threatened or scared or someone will take advantage of me. And these little things just made me think, oh wow, the one thing they have in common is their religion. But really what was the calling or what made me take it seriously was one of my Coptic friends gave me his own Bible, and I took it home and I just opened up to Matthew chapter 6, and I believe that chapter was written for me because it answers every question I've had in life, and that's where God personally taught me, our Father who art in heaven. I never learned it from anybody. That's God taught me it, and I couldn't believe how beautiful the Bible was written and the words and how everything just, it makes so much sense, but I've never heard it said like that. And I actually did a Hindu fast for 3 months, and it's one of the most strict fasts where you abstain from meat and alcohol and all that for 3 months. But every Monday you abstain from food from sunrise to sunset. And so it was saying it's one of the fasts where like at the end of the 3 months you get what you ask for. And I was praying to ask, what's his name? Because yes, I had this community of new Coptic friends, but like that's really, I felt like that's really unfair. If that's the true God, then why did God only talk to a few? Or like, why are the rest of the world not like born into this? And the other thing I did is read Matthew chapter 6, because that chapter really explains everything. Like just one small portion of it talks about how to pray and do not be like the hypocrites playing openly with sorrowful faces, right? And it teaches you how to pray in a hidden room and not to be show-offy. But what's most beautiful is he said they have their reward too. And that's when I like started to think like, I haven't seen any other religious book like that, because this seems like the God of all. Because I have seen my grandmother blessed by her prayers to God. I have seen miracles happen outside of the faith, and I'm not like saying some people never find out who Christ is, but we're all his children. He blesses everyone, and that one line from Matthew chapter 6 really explained that he's the God of all. So yeah, that's really how I got my calling.
Thank you, again for answering, tackling this, question, but now here we have a little bit tougher question here. Because we know the journey may not be like an easy journey. I mean, there's a lot of kind of, bumps and things on the road. And, of course, it was not easy being an outsider, you know. So how did it feel in the beginning looking from the outside in? What's your experience, visit to church, liturgy and so forth, and kind of challenges that kind of stood in the way, and how were you able to conquer them? Doing justice.
So I would say my experience, I would say number one, I guess, it felt, so the liturgy, when I first experienced the liturgy, it was beautiful. It felt very foreign and like Eastern to me, which kind of caught me off guard, but it also intrigued me as well. But I guess, the challenges coming in, like I'm not Egyptian, I go to the church and I hear Arabic being spoken. I can't pronounce a lot of the holidays or a lot of the food. So that was something that was probably the only challenge for me, was just trying to, I guess, find my place like in there. From the past, most of the churches that I belonged to, my first church, everybody looked like me. And my second church was very diverse. So just going into a church was like 5,000 families and everybody's Egyptian. That was kind of probably the only challenge that I had. But I guess the main thing that just kept me going was I just felt that, community will come later. I came from the faith, and I was really excited about, partaking of the Eucharist, partaking of the Holy Mysteries. So I just tended to focus on the theology. And I do think that's something that it could be, I don't want to say a hindrance, but it could just be a challenge for certain converts coming in and just being nervous and not fitting in, some culture and stuff like that. But I just got to focus on the theology, the liturgy, and living the Orthodox life. And it's been working out pretty good so far. So yeah.
Okay, how did it feel in the beginning looking for the outside experience? Well, I touched on my first visit to church, the St. Mary and St. Rue Parish in Memphis, Tennessee. And like I said, it was a very interesting experience right out of the gate, even though I had heard Coptic chant and things like that in the past. I'd never seen it live. When I saw it live, I immediately felt a certain energy, but also a presence of God that seemed to be a step up from the post-Vatican II Catholic liturgy, which is very watered down, as Abuna had talked about. It's very short, and there's a lot of liturgical abuses in it these days. And but in terms of looking from the outside and kind of being in a different culture, the culture is different than mine, but the people are very similar. And what I mean by that is that I'm not Egyptian, but Egyptians, I'm familiar with the way Egyptians are because the people down in the deep south are very similar at their best, which is why I sort of felt very comfortable. It's a very warm environment, very transparent, very hospitable, and that's what anyone should be, but particularly Christians, we have a duty for it. And the Arabic didn't deter me too much. I had associated it with Islam and things like that in the past, but the way that I heard it spoke in somewhere like the liturgy was something very beautiful. It was very smooth, and with regards to how I fit into the Coptic Church or how I feel, I don't particularly feel like an outsider. My culture seems to be something just as a side note rather than something distinct from my own, because even though I may not be Egyptian, I also don't fit up here in New Jersey culturally. And it's not so much even the color of my skin, it's more so my culture, my raising. I listen to bluegrass music. I like banjos. I like very old country music, things like that. And so, okay. Yeah, but so I have an interest in all those things because that's what I was raised with. I was raised with that because my father was that way, and I love my father very much, and I tried to take what was good from him. So I don't particularly feel like an outsider, and it has been pretty easy to get adjusted to the Coptic. I have a decent grasp while pronouncing the Coptic and everything in the chant form, but it took a while, simply because a lot of it is foreign, admittedly, even though I'm a very eclectic person. I take from all sorts of different sources. And with that, I guess I'll give it back to Shelley.
I love what Justin said because it's so true. Faith comes first, then community. 100%, I will always be an outsider and feel like it, but you have to know what your priority is. So when I first started taking classes with Abuna in church, 6 months he didn't let me meet anybody actually, and now I understand why. And my first church service that I ever saw was a funeral, and I fell in love with it. And that's this funerals are still my favorite thing to go to till today, because the words and the peace, you realize that you'll be with God. It's just so tremendous. But I think he wanted me to build my faith and be baptized properly before I met the community, which, you can never control the tongues of our mouth, right? And James, we know that. And so like I've heard insults, I've heard things about my own culture being said, I've heard like if I wore henna on my hand, someone saying that's a devil thing. I've heard many things, and I've heard beautiful things too, and my best friends are Coptic, but you have to know what comes first, and it saddens my heart that I hear people leave the church because of a priest or a person or someone being rude, because you have to understand that there's a difference. Even if a priest does something wrong, that doesn't mean we lose faith in our church and God. So that's kind of how I stayed along the path. I mean, I have to I don't know how long everyone else has been a convert, but I'm nearing 10 years. I have to say that the most disheartening thing, honestly, is the ignorance of the people sometimes. A lot of people are just so happy that I look Egyptian. They're like, you look just like us. Or they want to teach me about their culture, which I love the food, and I've been to Egypt. But no one ever wants to hear about the other side, not many people. And I can't stress to you how much you can win people over in your college community just by knowing a little bit something about their cultures.
Thank you, Shana. That was really beautiful. And speaking of college, and this brings us to the last question, or the last formal question in this format. I'm sorry we did not get you did not give us a proper introduction of your academically. So maybe you can do that very quickly. And speaking of academia, what's your advice to? I mean, you are one sitting in these, as students and learning and trying to navigate all kinds of questions. So for what general advice you give to young people on college campus from your own campus experience, and a special insight you may offer with your unique point of view. So you can review this again. Give us a little bit about academic background and advice to the students.
Thank you. So I actually went to trade school. I'm a blue collar guy, so I work on heating, ventilation, air conditioning. But I have been on many college campuses. I have friends in Virginia who went to Christian colleges. But I've been to colleges over here. I hung out on many campuses. I would say I guess advice would be just don't be afraid to tell people about your faith or show people your faith. Don't be scared. Be bold. Read your Bible in front of people. I would say have hand crosses in your car. Don't be afraid to just be as orthodox as you can possibly be. Because I will say that coming from the Protestant denomination, they are a little bit better with evangelism. I remember my last church, every Saturday morning, we would knock on doors with a Bible in our hand and tell people about Jesus. So they're very bold. So I think us as Orthodox Christians, we have the apostles, we have the traditions, we have the church fathers. We should be extremely bold with our faith and not be ashamed, with our faith, especially from the Coptic Orthodox perspective. We belong to a church from people who would rather die than denounce Christ. So I just believe just being bold. If you have non-Orthodox friends, just tell them about your faith. Just invite them to, talk. Maybe a Vespers, anything. You never know what people are looking for. People are really out here looking for hope and looking for something. So it's just really important that you just got to be bold and don't be ashamed of your faith. Never be ashamed of your faith. And a lot of people in the Protestant church, there's a lot of uncertainty because there's so many denominations. There's a lot of uncertainty with theology and their faith. So they may not be as solidified as you think they are. I know of two converts actually who just converted to the Coptic Orthodox Church. He and his wife. He was 34 years old, and he went on an entire journey through different Protestant denominations and studying just to find the Coptic Church. So he went on a crazy journey, but I just imagine with somebody from our church just introduce themselves to him and be like, hey, come to church with me. Probably would have took him a little less longer. So I would just say be bold and don't be afraid to tell people about our beautiful faith.
my advice will be a little more practical overall. A little less religious oriented in this case. But my background is I have a high school diploma. I have a GED, and I'm going into college next spring for IT actually. So pray for me with regards to that. My advice is, like Justin said, be very bold. Embrace the more strange and seemingly bizarre components of the Orthodox faith, because oftentimes that's exactly what will draw people to you, because it's something different. Everything that the Coptic Orthodox and the Oriental Orthodox churches overall believe can be backed up by reason, by common sense, by theology. We have the apostles, we have the church fathers, we have the sacraments. Partake of the sacraments often, get confession often, be open-minded, but don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out. And it's very good to remember that, because the devil is real, Satan is real. He works day to day, every night, every day, especially in our current socio-political environment, because the people that run our ideologies and our institutions hate everything about our faith. They try to uproot everything that not only we believe in, but also the classic philosophers and the various ancient religions, everything else. What makes Orthodoxy special is that we have the consummation. We have the final revelation of truth of God to man, which is Jesus Christ. The Word became incarnate. And like St. Paul said, examine yourselves daily to see that you are in the faith. Strengthen yourself with regards to your intellect, to your apologetical resources. Converse with people, talk with people, debate with people if you like, but don't do it for the sake of trying to win an argument. Do it because you care about the truth, which is Jesus Christ, which is Jesus Christ found in the Orthodox Church. And try your best to obey Abuna. It's a very it's like a monastic, I guess, discipline. But try to obey Abuna. Try to love your parents and your family as much as you can, and love your friends, love everybody, and try to forgive people as much as you can, and let little things, don't let people eat at you too much, because one day they may not be around and you may regret it. And with that, I guess I'll give it to Shelley.
It was really nice to hear from both of you guys. My education, I'm a doctor. I love this question of Luna, because as a servant of the church, I always wanted to go visit people. But basically, I want you guys to really go home and reflect. Who do I include and who do I disclude? So when I was in my graduate program, you don't have time to hang out all day. It's not like college. And so you really have to decide who's your inner circle. There's some family members you can never lose, so that's too bad. But in terms of friends, when we're talking about who's included. And I cut out a lot of people based on the fact that I compare them to my brother and sister who, please pray for them, they don't know who Christ is. And I compare them to them. And I said, if I'm gonna be in the exact same situation, meaning like if I'm gonna hang out and it's exactly the same, then I might as well go home and hang out with my family than hang out with these Christian Orthodox people. So raise that question. If it's you, if you're not doing anything different around your Christian friends, then there's something off about that. And then about who you disclude, my whole journey is because I was invited to a Coptic group of friends. And my heart hurts seeing how much people do not have any non-Egyptian friends. It really baffles me. I have been on so many mission trips, and people, the rate of conversion is so much higher than here because we are taught by, I don't know, the parents or I'm not sure where it comes from, but you're taught to stick to your own, and that's not good. And I can say that firsthand because when I have to deal with non-Christians, my faith only gets stronger because sometimes they raise really good questions that makes me go look for things. Sometimes I have no peace and I leave it at the door, as the verse says, and I know I've always made the right choice, but I can't stress to you how important it is for you guys to understand that you guys in college are supposed to be out there for others too. So who do you include and who do you disclude? And then the other thing I would like to stress is these days where you don't have to wake up early are beautiful. So go to weekday liturgies as much as you can because there's nothing more beautiful than that. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're really actually beautiful to hear about how we need to be bold, we need to be, I think, kind of sum all of this to have clear boundaries by myself and others. So sometimes we put boundaries with boundaries need not be, and we take down boundaries where boundaries need to be. So I think it's good to know that as we kind of, we're gonna have open it maybe just for 3 quick questions. If anyone feels have a question to specific panelists, so maybe pick one of our panelists and ask them a question. Maybe somebody else would ask a second question to the second panelist, and so forth. So we can get to have 3 different questions or answers. Okay? If you pick one panelist, directed at one panelist. You get to pick the first dibs.
Okay. So either Justice or Ryan, either one. So my question was, I noticed that like a connection between what drew both of you in was the liturgy. A lot of us as Coptic Orthodox youth, we were born into this culture and into this faith. So I'll talk about myself. Sometimes I wake up Sunday mornings and I have this unintentional indifference towards the liturgy, and I hate it. I don't like having this indifference. I know the beauty of the liturgy. I know the importance of communion. So is there a way to like shift that? Is there a way to see the beauty of liturgy from someone who hasn't become how do I word this? Like someone who's been born and seen liturgy. I've been to 101 liturgies. I've grown up in the church. How do I see the beauty again? Like I know it's there, but how do I see it again? I don't know if that makes sense.
No. Very cliche answer. Pray for zeal. That's one suggestion. Everything you could want to know about the Orthodox teaching and about salvation is in the Divine Liturgy, because the liturgy is the reenactment. It's not just a memorial, but you are actively engaging in that as you attend the liturgy. And of course, we believe that the sacraments have real, efficacious, they're probably realer than we are, in all honesty. The Eucharist, the Holy Communion is actually the body and blood of Jesus Christ. It through a mystery, it becomes bread and wine becomes the body and blood of Jesus Christ. And if you want to sort of make liturgy fresh, firstly, I would suggest maybe attending a sister church at some point, and you can take communion there. I say sister church so you can take communion with them. Kind of compare the different liturgies, the different things that like make a liturgy, because there's different components. Because ritual is very efficacious, and liturgy is the most efficacious ritual because it's where heaven and earth meet. We cease to be on earth when we attend the Divine Liturgy. And like I said, and I've been to the Syrian church, the Armenian, the Ethiopian. I've been to all of them. I can compare all of them, everything else. But the Coptic one is my favorite because it's all the ritual of the other churches, kind of on steroids. And that's what I like about it. I mean, I'm a weirdo, but it's the truth. I like the 10-hour Good Friday services, and I like I love Bright Saturday. I love Apocalypse Night. Sounds very metal because it is. And I love like Pashka. That's what I was introduced into. So I was in that small Memphis, Tennessee parish without an air conditioner. It felt like I was in Egypt for Holy Week. It was very authentic. But that's my general advice regarding how to sort of restore and reinvigorate yourself. Just remind yourself and pray for a fire.
Thank you so much, Ryan. This
You're welcome.
was a flattering description of the service. Thank you. We have here a question for Shelley.
I know in your introduction you said you were very close to the Hindu faith in the beginning of your lifetime. So how was it with your parents' reaction when you wanted to convert to the Orthodox Church, and also how long was the process? The catechumens class, how long did it take, and how long did it take you to get baptized?
Yeah, Hinduism, it's not like Islam, but in a sense where it's still awkward, but it came to a point where if I had to leave the house for my parents and for God, I was ready to do that. But they really didn't understand why you had to take it out so much out of the home. Why is liturgy 4 hours? Why are you over at church? It was more what was affiliated with it. The actual baptism was very much a slap in their face in a sense, because once again, people really can't differentiate between culture and religion. They were like, yeah, but you're Hindu, and I was like, you decide what religion you are. And still, till this day, sometimes it's hard for people to comprehend that. It's been a long time, so at first they honestly thought, oh, maybe there's a boy, and then there was a boy, and then years went by, and they're like, this is a phase, and then it wasn't a phase, and so it's acceptance at this point. But I think getting married to an Orthodox person really helped to show solidification and how this is just who I am. But it's just it's a daily different reaction. It's interesting. And in terms of the whole class and everything like that, yeah, that was everybody is an individualistic person. I had time off, and I love the Bible. When would assign me a book a day or every 2 days, I would come and read it and want to dispute this and why did this happen. And he did an excellent job of teaching me everything. And God puts the right people for you to help you with the process. If there were any other Boon, I probably wouldn't be here today. So yeah, I don't have a time frame for that. I think it was this month, but I don't remember.
Thank you, Shelley. We have one more question here. Same question. Okay. Which actually, I just learned there's nothing in this class here. I know some of you may have to go to class or they have something, but if you'd like to ask some more questions instead of waste that time, we have really this is a unique opportunity. Yes.
What's the process? What's the process you have to go through to convert the baptism?
So, what was the process for you like?
Mine was a little unusual. Usually you go through catechumenate classes. Amba Yusuf had me dunked within a week. Actually, true story. I was attending the Ethiopian liturgy with my friend, and we had heard that Amba Yusuf was there about 15 minutes away at the Coptic parish. And we were like, oh, well, if we leave the Kadase, the agape meal afterwards, maybe we could still catch him. And we walked in the Coptic church, and communion was just happening. So I was able to meet Amba Yusuf, and by this point I was a baptized Catholic for a couple of years. Like I said, there were no Orthodox churches, so I had to make ends meet. But so I met Amba Yusuf because I wanted to know if I had to be rebaptized. And he said, he kind of grabbed my arm kind of like gently. And he said, he said the Catholics are very close to us, but he said, they have the things like the purgatory and the papal infallibility and immaculate conception. He says, so yes, you would have to be rebaptized. And I looked at him dead in his eyes and I said, I don't believe in papal infallibility. I don't believe in purgatory. And he said, are you willing to be rebaptized? And I said, yes, Abuna. Yes, Sayyidina, whatever it takes. I just want to be Orthodox. And he called Abuna Titus back over. He said, Abuna, he's ready. Set a date. And I was baptized the week after on Lazarus Saturday, which I didn't know had a significance for the baptismal traditions in the Orthodox Church. Apparently it does. It's one of the significant baptismal days. And from there I attended Holy Week, thankfully being able to take communion. And so that's how it was for me. But usually you have to attend, the parishes have you attend catechumenate classes, and I believe they obtain the Holy Moron from the bishop. That usually takes like 6 months to a year. I guess it's like depends on the person, but for me, Amba Yusuf had me dunked in a week.
I think every conversion story is kind of unique in its own sense, but this is the beauty of it. Do you have any more questions? If not, I have a question. I have a question actually. How again, from your experiences, how you guys, what do you like to see different about the youth in the Catholic Church, and what kind of suggestions how to we all strive to, we all have this goal. We want to make the church as welcoming, as warm for everybody. If you see anything if you spot anything that you'd like to kind of highlight a little bit, to stress upon, I think would be really nice to hear that. Please feel free. Share.
So I think in my specific church, I think we kind of deal with this, but I guess just being kind to when you see like outsiders and with people, just greet them, say hi, welcome to our church. I can remember like when I got baptized, it really felt like the church just gave me a big warm hug. Like everybody just came and said congratulations, 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 like from the entire church. And everybody was just so kind, and like they would give up their seat for me. Like I just think being kind is just the biggest thing that you could do and make people feel welcome. Because coming from a Protestant tradition, if we see like a church that's like made up just of one ethnic group, we're like, okay, they're Christians, but we don't really go there. So I think just when they come in, just getting that out of their mind when they see how kind you guys are, that'll really be just in their head. They're like, oh, okay, maybe I can find a place here. I can find a home here. So yeah.
Incorporate banjos during the liturgy. That's my suggestion. No, I'm joking. No, everything Justice said. That's but like he said, my parish is pretty good with it. Just go up and be nice to people. Be warm to people. Be inviting, because one interaction oftentimes is all it takes. And so that's my basic advice.
Sure, there's anything else you want to add regarding this question?
I think I already said what I wanted to, from before, thank you.
Okay. I heard there was another question. Yes.
What advice would you guys give to like someone that's in the process of converting, and how would they like get closer to God other than like the catechism class?
So I would say someone who's in the process of converting, just take your time. There's no rush. Continue going to liturgy, go to talks. Make sure you find one person, like just one person that will help you with your spiritual life. Because as a convert, one of the things I can say is that once I leave church, I don't go home to an Orthodox household. Like I'm the only Orthodox Christian in my house. So having like the church, people in the church, like be a support system, that's really, really important. Because when I gotta get up for Sundays, early morning liturgy, like I don't have my mom or my dad like saying, hey, you gotta get up, you gotta go to liturgy, or anybody else. Like if I miss liturgy, it doesn't really mean anything. Like it doesn't really matter. But to my friends at church, it's like, hey, where were you? Like what's going on? So I would say to someone who's in the process of converting, make sure you find one person who cares about your spiritual life. And also ask lots of questions. Don't be afraid to just hit Abuna up whenever. Like I was texting Abuna at like 5 a.m. Like when I was sleeping, just asking like, hey, what does this mean? What is that? Why do we do this? Like, make sure that you get the answers to your questions, because you want to be solid in your faith. You want to make sure that you're making the right decision, and that you understand, everything that's going on in the church. Obviously, you're not going to be like a crazy theologian like your first year, and understanding like every theological position, but you want to make sure that you're at least living the Orthodox lifestyle. So like at least attending liturgy, even though you're in the process of converting, like you can't take communion yet, but observe the liturgy, try to understand the liturgy, listen to what's being said in the words, go to talks, go to retreats, just be a part of the church as much as you possibly can, especially if you don't come from an Orthodox household or a Christian household, and you're just going home and there's nobody there, like, motivating you, so.
Yeah, I agree so much with what Justin said. When you don't have someone to hold you accountable, you rely completely on God. And whoever is seeking, God opens the door widely. So the first few years were actually like blissful. Like I made a promise that I'm gonna keep going besides like whatever weekday things you do. Even for me, going Sunday morning was difficult to establish in a family that doesn't understand that there's church on Sundays. But I made it my doctrine. I made it everything that was so important that I had to fight to go to Sunday liturgy. When you have to fight to go to Sunday liturgy, it's a whole different experience. So that new person probably has the guidance of God so much that they don't need motivation. But the one thing, if you know someone that's interested, don't just be that person's companion. Allow them to get to know a priest, because you may not be able to guide them in the correct way.
I have a question as well. So when we meet converts and we get to know them and stuff like that, we're very enthusiastic to talking about God, inviting to church and youth meeting as often as possible. So my question is, what's the balance between someone being annoying and someone just encouraging you to be involved?
Don't be afraid to be annoying, firstly. Sometimes you have to be with certain people. But
Yeah, you only annoy the people you care about. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. I agree with that, definitely. I would stick, when you talk about people and you're trying to help converts, help them to develop their overall spiritual life. Read the Psalms, say the Desert Fathers, very digestible stuff. And be gentle, patient with them. If if they're not able to say, make all the fasts and things like that, be patient with them, because that, I can speak from experience, that takes time to get adjusted to. But overall, don't worry too much, just be enthusiastic and, poke and prod a little bit, but just show that, you're gentle, you're warm, you support them, And I think that's the best way to do it, honestly.
Thank you so much. I think we can, we got kind of a good core message here from Justice Ryan and Shelley about how precious is the faith, how precious, how deep is the worship, and how bold we should be. And I think these are at least a few takeaway messages that we all should not forget. We're very grateful for actually you guys taking the time. I know it's not easy in the midst of everybody's busy schedule. And not only to come with us to share your time, but to share your stories. St. Paul said, "We not come to share our epistle, but share ourselves also." So I truly appreciate that. So thank you to Justice Ryan and to Shelley. We look forward to seeing you again. I hope that you would consider coming back again maybe next semester or something like that. Maybe we can have a more targeted kind of topics as well. So I think I don't want to take much of your time. I'm very grateful to all of you who came here. It's really heartwarming to see the room full. And as I said before in the first meeting, this is the Wednesday meeting is the most important part of the Catholic society, which will actually touch base with our fathers, with our brothers and sisters who join the faith, and I think it kind of helps us shape our understanding of our faith and how we live our faith. I don't know if you have any announcements to share before we close the prayer. Can you all please? I hope you signed with the attendance. Attendance is pretty important for us to have attendance of all our meetings.
Hi guys. A lot of exciting things coming up. On the 21st, October 21st, we're going apple picking at 1 o'clock, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I really hope that everyone comes on time. Yeah, Michael just texted in the group meet. All you have to do is show up, and it's going to be so much fun. And then Tisbeha this week was on Monday, so next week it'll be on Tuesday, and then the Wednesday meeting will go. The Wednesday meeting will be by Abuna Anthony Andrews, I think on the Defending the Scripture, right? Yeah, and then the most special part about today is that Abuna Morpus' birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Abuna. Happy birthday to you. Any birthday wishes?
No, just pray for me. Pray for the service, please. Thank you.
O Lord, grant us the forgiveness of our sins. We worship you, O Christ, with your good Father and the Holy Spirit, for you have come and saved us. Our mercy of peace. Thank you, Spirit of God, for this person. Thank you for you gathering today. We ask you Lord, to help us, Lord, to be the true light, to be the light that reflects the true light everywhere we go, as you said. Let your light so shine before men that they may see the works and glorify God in heaven. Help us, Lord, to be true Christians. Help us, Lord, to be the image that you created us in, and to be follow your footsteps and to be as perfect as you are to. Lord, help us to feel clear the light, to strive for the art of perfection, that our minds is the same of your mind, our thoughts, our hearts, our understanding, everything that we do reflects who you are. In this way, you gather people from all corners of the earth to glorify your holy name and to worship you, and that all corners of the earth worship your holy name. We ask you to bless this ministry and bless all the in this ministry, and to bless all the churches and all the Christians, all those who are far away from the church, and those who don't know anything about you, and those who live a very far life away from you. We ask you, Lord, to keep the peace in the world and to eliminate all wars, all evil from this world. Keep the peace in Ukraine, Russia, Israel, and Palestine, to stop all killing innocent people in the midst. We ask you, Lord, to bless this campus and all campus, bless our all of the remote and bless the service, and keep us in the blessed years, blessing us with his wisdom and service and his love. Bless the evil and bless each one of us who stand here in front of you. Thank you, our Father.
Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Great Jesus, our Lord, thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever.
God, for this through your Son. First, we feel the wisdom and the glory, and the Lord peace, and the peace of the Lord be
Thank you for coming and blessing us today.
It's my blessing.
Amen. Same to you, brother. Thank you for coming and sharing. Happy that God is blessing you and making himself real to you. And making a difference.